A week after I was discharged from the hospital, a young nurse called me and said in a strange voice that the test results had arrived. This is not a telephone conversation. Meet me at the bus stop immediately. The main thing is that the husband and the doctor don't find out. Before this call, Angelina tried to convince herself that everything was going according to plan. The huge house, which the locals called a fortress, was drowning in snowdrifts. Behind the high brick walls there was an unnatural silence, broken only by the crying of a baby. Angelina stood by the cradle, decorated with handmade lace, and looked at the child. Little Misha was struggling. His face was red from screaming. His tiny fists were clenching and unclenching. Angelina stretched out her hands and took the boy, but did not feel the usual warmth that was written about in the books. There was emptiness inside, cold, ringing emptiness. She rocked it mechanically, like a metronome in piano lessons. Left, right, left, right. It seemed to her that she was holding in her hands someone else's package, handed over to her for safekeeping. She attributed this to fatigue, a difficult birth, and stress. But intuition, honed by years of running a music school, whispered that there was a false note here. The door to the nursery swung open with a bang. Taras entered as he entered the workshops of his metallurgical plant, in a masterly, noisy manner, filling the entire space. He smelled of expensive cognac and frost. But how is our heir doing? He thundered as he came closer. Taras did not ask how his wife was feeling. He looked only at his son. His large fingers touched the cheeks of the baby. Misham immediately fell silent, as if he felt the power of this man. Grows quietly answered Angelina. He eats. Poor league nonsense. Taras waved him off. Our people will gain their strength. You saw how many gifts they sent from the ministry. The entire hall is littered. Why, father called and said that he would come to sign the papers immediately after the plant's anniversary. Is pleased with Angelina. You can't imagine how pleased he is. For the first time in 10 years. The old man told me well done. Taras went to the mirror, straightened the knot of his tie, and smiled smugly at his reflection. He saw there not just a 45-year-old man, but the future owner of the empire. Will organize christenings on such a scale that the city will go blind. He continued, pacing around the room. Let's invite the governor, journalists. This will be a picture for the front pages. A strong family, a continuation of the dynasty. You must look perfect. Buy yourself something decent. Don't be modest. At that moment, Angelina's phone vibrated on the nightstand. She shuddered. The number was unfamiliar. Usually she didn't pick up the phone if the call was not from school, or not from Taras' circle of acquaintances. But now her hand reached for the phone by itself. Hello. The whistle of the wind and the hum of passing cars could be heard in the receiver. The voice on the other end of the line trembled, breaking into a whisper. Angelina Viktorovna, this is Dasha. Nurse from the maternity hospital, the one who gave you IVs. Angelina tensed. She remembered this girl, young, with frightened eyes, the only one in that elite clinic who treated her with sincere sympathy, and not with servility. Dasha, what's happened? Don't speak loudly, I beg you, the girl jabbered. And Angelina heard genuine horror in her voice. The test results arrived, which the doctor ordered to be destroyed. I saved a copy. This is not a telephone conversation. Meet me at the stop near the old park immediately, right now. The main thing is that the husband and the doctor don't find out. The doctor finds out that I called you, he will kill me. The connection has been lost. Angelina froze with the phone in her hand. My heart skipped a beat and then started beating somewhere in my throat. Who is this? Teres asked lazily. Without turning around, Angelina forced her voice to sound even. Years of endurance in front of strict examination boards were now saving her. From the pharmacy. They said they mixed up the order with the mixture. They brought the wrong brand. We urgently need to change it before they close for re-registration. Let the driver go. Teres muttered, losing interest. No, Angelina said firmly, putting the phone in her pocket. I'm on my own. I need to clear my head. I'm suffocating in this house. Teres chuckled, but did not argue. He didn't care where his wife was as long as she didn't interfere with his enjoyment of his triumph. Angelina drove the car out of the garage. Her hands on the steering wheel were shaking so much that she had to squeeze the brake until her knuckles turned white. Dusk covered the city, the industrial landscape. Outside, the window seemed hostile. The factory's black chimneys spewed smoke into the gray sky. Dirty snow lay along the sides of tall oxen. The old park stop was empty. The wind blew scraps of newspapers across the asphalt. Angelina got out of the car. Wrapped in a coat, the cold was chilling to the bones, but not because of the weather. A frail figure emerged from the shadow of a billboard. Dasha was without a hat. Her hair was disheveled. Her face was pale. Her eyes were darting around. She looked like a hunted animal. Angelina Viktorovna exhaled, running up. Take it faster. She thrust a crumpled sheet of paper into Angelina's hands. It was a laboratory form. What is this? Angelina asked, trying to make out the numbers in the dim light of the lantern. Blood type, Dasha whispered, constantly looking back at the road. The doctor rewrote the chart. Everything is clear in official documents. But I am a laboratory assistant. I saw the initial tests. Look, you have the first group with Taras Petrovich. The second. The child has a fourth. Angelina looked up at the nurse. She was not a biologist, but she remembered the school curriculum. Is this a mistake? No. Dasha grabbed her by the arm. This is impossible. Biologically impossible. This boy, he is the son of Thoras. A DNA test confirms this. The doctor did it in secret. New. You are not his mother. The world around Angelina rocked. The lantern overhead blinked and buzzed louder. What are you saying? I gave birth to him. I was there. Had a cesarean section under general anesthesia ahead of schedule. Remember? Dasha's voice broke into tears. We're sleeping. The doctor set it all up. The child was replaced immediately. Boy is your husband's son from another woman. Angelina felt nausea rising in her throat. The ground was disappearing from under our feet. And my child? She asked hoarsely. Where is my child? Did he die? Dasha shook her head, tears flowing down her cheeks. No. Alive. It was a girl, a healthy girl. But Taras needed a son, the heir. The girl was simply carried away. I don't know where. The documents state that she is a refusenik, but she was not included in the orphanage's database. The doctor said the problem was resolved within the family. The headlights of a passing car appeared in the distance. Dasha recoiled in horror. Have to go. They find out. Burn it, she screamed and rushed to run into the darkness of the park, falling into the snowdrifts. Angelina was left alone. In her hand she clutched a crumpled piece of paper that crossed out her entire life. Snow fell on the paper, blurring the ink, but the meaning remained clear. Her husband stole her daughter from her, planted someone else's son on her in order to get his father's money. The way back was like a fog. Angelina did not remember how she drove the car, how the heavy gates of the fortress opened. There was only one thought in my head, to find my daughter. But where to look? Inside the family. Dasha said so. She entered the house. There were bright lights in the hall. Music was playing. Some kind of bravura march that Taras loved. Laughter came from the living room. Angelina slowly took off her boots. Not feeling her feet, she walked down the corridor and froze at the door. Agatha, her younger sister, was sitting on the sofa, lounging in a relaxed position. Agatha, who always complained about the lack of money, about her unsuccessful personal life, who was jealous of Angelina's every success. Now she was dressed in a new expensive silk dress of emerald color. A ring sparkled on her finger, which Angelina had never seen before. But the worst thing was that Agatha was holding Misha in her arms. She didn't just hold him. She pressed him to her with that greedy, animalistic, possessive passion that cannot be confused with anything. She kissed the top of his head, inhaled his scent and smiled in a way she never smiled at her nephews. Tara stood next to a glass of whiskey and looked at them. Not like relatives. He looked at Agatha and the child as if they were a set that belonged to him. Angelina took a step forward. The floor creaked. Agatha looked up. There was no guilt or fear in them, just a celebration. The impudent, well-fed smile of the winner. Back, the sister drawled lazily. And here we are playing with Mishenka. He calmed down. So much in my arms. You can still feel your family blood. Right. The final puzzle has come together in Angelina's head. The son of Taras is not yours, Agatha. Angelina approached her sister closely. Taras tensed, but remained silent, watching the scene with interest. It was not your son who asked, but Angelina who approved it. Her voice was quiet, like the rustling of dry leaves. Agatha laughed. The sound was sharp and unpleasant. It finally came. She leaned towards Angelina's ear, continuing to rock the baby. Of course it's mine. You didn't think that Taras would entrust the inheritance to yours. Genetics. He needed a son. And I can give him what you are no longer capable of. Where is my daughter? Angelina grabbed her sister by the shoulder, squeezing the fabric of her dress. Dasha said that she was not sent to an orphanage. Where is she? Agatha shook off her sister's hand with disgust. Her face contorted into a grimace of evil pleasure. Oh, don't worry, benefactress, Angelina hissed. We are not animals. Your girl is here. Angelina froze. Here, below. Agatha pointed a manicured finger at the floor. In the basement, in Nina's closet, registered her as a foundling. An orphan whom the family nobly took into their care out of mercy. She lives where she belongs, among the servants. Now move away. You're blocking the light for my son. Angelina turned around and rushed to the door to the basement. She couldn't feel her legs or hear her sister's screams behind her. There was only one thought pulsating in my head. Below. At Nina's, the door to the utility room was heavy, oak, as if separating the heaven of the Lord from the purgatory of the servants. Angelina pulled the handle towards herself. The smell of dampness, washing powder, and cheap tobacco hit my nose. The staircase was steep and dark. She ran downstairs, almost tripping on the last step. In the small room where the old housekeeper Nina lived, only a dim table lamp was burning. Nina was sitting on a sagging sofa, darning someone's shirt. Seeing the owner, she jumped up, dropping the needle, her face distorted with fear. Angelina Viktorovna, you can't come here. Taras forbade it. Angelina didn't listen. Her gaze darted around the cramped closet filled with boxes and buckets, and then she saw. In the corner, right on the floor, there was a wicker laundry basket lined with old towels. Something was stirring inside her. Angelina fell to her knees in front of the basket. There was a child lying there. Girl. She was tiny, much smaller than the strong boy upstairs. The skin is pale, almost transparent. There are shadows under the eyes. She slept restlessly, snoring quietly, clenching her fists near her face. She was wearing a washed-out undershirt, clearly from someone else's shoulder. Angelina's breath caught. It was her daughter. The same connection that was not there with Misha. Flared up here instantly, blindingly painful. She reached out a trembling hand and touched the girl's forehead. Hot. How could you? She whispered, looking up at Nina. How could you remain silent? Nina lowered her head, crumpling her shirt in her hands. He is the owner, Angelina said. If I make a sound, he'll throw me out onto the street without a pension. Where will I go? I am 60 years old. Fury, hot and dark, flooded Angelina. She carefully, afraid of waking her up, picked up the girl in her arms. The child was weightless. I'm taking her, Angelina said firmly, pressing her daughter to her chest, relieving. Now, she turned towards the stairs, but a massive figure blocked her path. Taras stood on the bottom step with his hands in his trouser pockets. Didn't look angry or scared. He looked bored. And where are you going for the night? He asked calmly, as if they were discussing the weather. With someone else's child. With my daughter. Angelina shouted. Step aside, Taras. I'm going to the police. I'll tell everyone what you did. Substitution of children. Falsification of documents. They'll put you in jail. Taras slowly went downstairs, filling the cramped room. Nina huddled in a corner, trying to become invisible. Police, he grinned. The head of the police department will be with us for dinner today. Do you want to tell him? Go ahead, let's just clarify the situation. Under the document signed by the head physician, you gave birth to a son. This is a girl, a foundling, whom we sheltered out of the kindness of our hearts. You leave the gate with her now. I will call the duty station and report kidnapping. He took a step closer. Towering over her. You stole an orphan from its guardians. You are in an inadequate state after childbirth. Oh, you know what they will do to you? You will be deprived of your parental rights. Both Misha and this one. An orphan. They'll put you in a mental hospital, Angelina. And I will keep the children for myself. Both. Angelina stepped back a step, hugging the girl closer to her. She saw his eyes, the cold, calculating eyes of a businessman. He wasn't bluffing. For what? She whispered. Why do you need this? Circus is money, honey, money and power. Taras shrugged. Father, an old pre-monster builder, will never give a controlling stake to the woman. He needs a grandson, heir to the family name. He doesn't need your girl. And I need shares. It's simple. He reached out his hand and firmly took Angelina by the elbow. Now listen to me carefully. Now you go upstairs and put this one down. This misunderstanding is back in the trash. Get yourself in order. Have guests in an hour. You will smile, play the role of a happy mother of an heir and a loving wife. You do everything right. I'll let you come down here sometimes and feed her. Not. I will take her to the furthest shelter in the region and you will never see her again. The choice is yours. Angelina looked at him and understood that he had won. So far I've won. She had no evidence, no allies, no money, only fear for her daughter, who was now quietly snoring in her arms. She slowly, painfully tearing it away from her heart, put the girl back into the basket. Nina immediately covered the child with a blanket, hiding her eyes guiltily. Angelina straightened up. Something broke inside her. But in this place something new began to grow, hard and cold. Like steel in her husband's factory. It'll be ready in an hour, she said in an icy tone, and walked past Taras without looking at him. Dinner was torture. The living room shone with crystal and gilding. The table was laden with delicacies. The right people were sitting at the table. The chief of police, the prosecutor, a couple of local businessmen with their wives. Angelina sat at the head of the table, dressed in a strict black dress. She smiled, nodded, and answered questions about her son's health. Everything inside her was screaming, but her face remained an impenetrable mask. Tara's was on a roll. He cracked jokes, poured wine for the guests, and made toasts to the future of the plant. Next to him, on his right hand, sat Agatha. She changed her emerald dress to a red one with a deep neckline. She laughed loudly, kept touching Tara's hand, and shot her eyes towards the men. She didn't even look at her son, who was sleeping in a stroller in the corner of the room. "What about maternal instinct, Agatha?" the tipsy prosecutor asked, winking. "Would you like to babysit your nephew?" "Oh, come on." Agatha waved him off. "Angelina is such a possessive person. She doesn't give it to anyone. And kids, it's so tiring, isn't it?" Tara's laughed and hugged Agatha by the shoulders. Agatha is a free, creative woman. She has no time for diapers. Angelina squeezed the stem of the glass so that it almost cracked. They reveled in their impunity. They thought she was broken. She needed to get out. She needed air. She needed a weapon. "I'm sorry." Angelina stood up. "I need to check orders in the kitchen." Nobody paid attention to her. Tara's was already telling another joke. Angelina went out into the corridor, but did not go to the kitchen. She quickly and silently went up to the second floor, to the wing where her husband's office was located. The door was locked, but Angelina knew where Tara's was hiding the spare key. Under a ficus flower pot in the hallway. It's corny, but Thoris has always been predictable in small things. She entered the office. It smelled of leather and expensive cigars. Angelina turned on the table lamp and looked around. What was she looking for? Documents for the plant, incriminating evidence on the doctor. Her gaze fell on the massive painting of a hunt on the wall. There was a safe behind it. Angelina knew the code, the date of birth of Tara's father. Tara's was obsessed with inheritance, and it showed in everything. With trembling fingers, she typed the numbers 1508. The lock clicked. The door gave way. Angelina held her breath, expecting to see wads of money or shares, but the safe was almost empty. There was only one thin folder made of gray cardboard. "Oh, signatures." Angelina took it out and opened it. The first thing she saw was a photograph of Agatha, but not a front door, but a police one, taken from a surveillance camera on the highway. Agatha is driving a sports car. Her face is twisted with fear. Next came the documents, protocols, extracts, copies of interrogations. Angelina quickly scanned the text. Fatal accident, fled the scene. The victim died on the spot, City Point 3 years ago. Angelina turned the page. There was a receipt there. Tara's handwriting. The issue has been resolved. The case was closed due to lack of evidence of a crime. Price issue. The sum was astronomical, and at the very end, one more paper agreement between Tara's and Agatha. Angelina's hands began to crack. This was not just a romance. It was slavery. Tara's didn't just sleep with her sister. He had her on a hook. Agatha knocked a man to death in another city, and Tara's got her off. But he kept all the evidence, original protocols, camera recordings. These papers end up in the prosecutor's office of another region. Agatha will go to prison for 10 years. Angelina closed the folder. A burst of laughter erupted into the living room downstairs. Now she understood why Agatha agreed to surrogacy. Why did she give the child away? Why does she suffer humiliation? She's afraid. She is in the same trap as Angelina, but the difference was that Angelina now held the key to this trap in her hands. She tucked the folder under her jacket, holding it close to her body. Cold cardboard. Burns to the skin. Angelina turned off the lamp and left the office, carefully closing the door. Now she had a plan. And it began with a conversation with my sister. Angelina came downstairs when the guests were already leaving. She waited until Terrace came out to accompany the chief of police to the gate and intercepted Agatha in the corridor. The sister headed to her room, staggering from the wine she had drunk and humming to herself. "We need to talk," Angelina said quietly, blocking her path. "Oh, come on, not today, righteous woman," Agatha waved, trying to get around her. "I'm tired of your sour face." Angelina silently took out a gray folder from under her jacket and showed her a photograph from the surveillance camera. Agatha froze. The hop left her instantly. The face turned gray. The lips began to tremble. She recognized this frame. "Where?" she whispered, looking around. "Where did you get this from?" Angelina also quietly answered. "From Tara's safe. Doesn't keep this as a keepsake. Agatha, this is a leash. And now I have it." She grabbed her sister by the elbow and pulled her into the nearest guest bedroom. Closing the door tightly, Agatha collapsed into a chair, covering her face with her hands. "Will you rat me out?" she asked deftly. "You're my sister. And you slept with my husband and stole my daughter." Angelina snapped coldly. "We're even. But I don't want revenge, Agatha. I want my children. Both. And I want Terrace to pay for everything." Agatha raised her tear-stained eyes. There was animal fear in them. "What do you want?" "Help. You will help me destroy him. Tomorrow morning this folder will be on the table of the regional prosecutor. Not from our local Terrace, but in the capital. You will sit there for 10 years. You will like it there." Agatha sobbed and nodded. "I'll do anything, just not prison." Terrace promised that he destroyed the originals, bastard. "I need proof of child switching," Angelina demanded. "Official, where are they?" Agatha wiped her nose with the back of her hand. The doctor's keeps them in his personal archive at the clinic. There are real cards there, with your signature for the cesarean section, with the girl's blood type. Terrace needs them as insurance to blackmail his father if he suddenly changes his mind. And the doctor keeps them to blackmail Terrace. Where exactly? In the clinic, in the basement, in the old storage room, only. He has the key, but I know the code to the door to the corridor. I saw him typing. The next morning, Angelina called the music school and cancelled the orchestra's rehearsal for the anniversary, citing a migraine. She told Terrace the same thing. Didn't even come to her. He just muttered through the door so that she wouldn't dare to get sick. Before her father's arrival. As soon as his car drove out of the gate, Angelina called a taxi. It was impossible to take your car. Terrace could track it using the GPS. The doctor's clinic was private, expensive, and sterile. Angelina walked through the service entrance, using the pass that Agatha stole from Terrace. The corridors were quiet and smelled of bleach and expensive perfume. She found the right door at the end of the basement hallway. Code lock. Agatha said the numbers. The year the plant was founded. Angelina dialed them. The lock squeaked and the door opened. It was dark and dusty inside. Shelves with folders went to the ceiling. Angelina turned on the flashlight on her phone. Here she is. She pulled out a thick folder. My hands were shaking. Opened it. Yes. Here it is. Birth certificate of a girl. Date. Time, weight 2,800 grams, signature of the midwife who delivered the child, and next to it is another document, birth certificate, boy, mother, Agatha, father. Terrace. Angelina put the documents into her bag. She did it. Now she had everything to destroy Terrace. The click of the lock on the back sounded like a shot. Angelina turned around sharply. The doctor was standing at the door, in a white robe, with a constant benevolent smile on his plump face. Angelina, he clicked with his tongue, locking the door with a key from the inside. It's not good to go through other people's things. This is a medical secret. He took out his phone. Tara's. Yes. She's here. It's in my archives. I found some papers. Yes. Come, I'll hold her for now. Angelina stepped back, resting her back against the shelf. There was no way out. The doctor was a large man, a former military doctor. You can't deal with it by force. Let me go, she said, trying to keep her voice from shaking. I know about the substitution. I know about Agatha. You will sit down with Tara's. The doctor chuckled, putting the phone in his pocket. Baby, who's going to put me in jail? In this city I hosted a kind of dinner for all the prosecutors and judges. Know their secrets better than yours. Stepped towards her. Angelina grabbed a heavy folder with metal corners from the shelf. Come, she shouted. I'll break the fire alarm. The extinguishing system will work and water will flood the entire archive. All your secrets, all the cards of your important clients will turn into mush. Your reputation will be destroyed. She swung the folder at the sensor on the ceiling. Vitaly stopped, but instead of fear, an expression of boredom appeared on his face. He suddenly laughed, loud and booming, to the point of tears. Reputation. He wiped away a tear. Clinica. Oh, I can't. Angelina, you are so naive. You think I care about this almshouse. He walked over to an old chair and sat down with his arms crossed over his chest. Hit. Come on, hit. Fill everything to hell. I don't care. In 3 days I won't be here. Already bought a one-way ticket. To the islands, where it is warm and there is no extradition. Angelina lowered her hand. What are you talking about? The doctor looked at her mockingly, but something similar to pity flashed in his eyes. You think Tara started this circus with the Heir because of ambition, out of love for my father? Ha, he's bankrupt. Angelina, complete, absolute zero. Angelina froze. This can't be true. The plant is working. Orders are coming. The doctor took over the plant in debt. Tara's lost. Not in the cards. No. To business. He got involved in a supply gamble and was scammed. To cover losses and pay for this pathos for the anniversary. He mortgaged everything. A house, factory shares, even land. And you know who? Not a jar syndicate. Serious people who don't joke. The doctor leaned forward, his voice hard. His grandfather's inheritance is his only chance to redeem his skin, but he is not going to buy anything. As soon as the old man signs a deed of gift for his grandson, Tara's will cash out all the assets, take the boy and leave the country, the same place as me. He and I have a share. And me, Angelina whispered. Agatha. What about my daughter? The doctor threw up his hands. And you will remain here, with the debts of the syndicate, with creditors who will come to take the house, with the police. You will remain a beggar, Angelina, on the street, with someone else's girl in your arms and a criminal case against your sister. Terrace has thought of everything. You are waste material for him, consumable. Angelina looked at him and felt a cold wave of horror rise inside her. This was not just betrayal. It was destruction. You will kill your father, she asked. For what? The old man himself will die when he finds out that his empire has been thrown to the wind. Torres will simply speed up the process. The phone in the doctor's pocket rang again. Yes, Tara's. Are you coming? Great, come in. Through the backyard. I'll open it. He stood up and headed towards the door. Sit quietly, he said over his shoulder. Your husband will come now and decide what to do with you. Maybe he'll end up in a mental hospital. Or maybe just accident. The stairs here are steep. He turned away to open the lock. Angelina realized this was her only chance. There will be no second attempt. Tara's will not let her go alive. Knowing that she has such information, she grabbed the folder more comfortably and, without thinking for a second, threw it with all her might. Not at the doctor, but into a glass cabinet with medicines, standing next to the fire detector. The sound of breaking glass was deafening, and then the siren started blaring. Powerful jets of water shot from the ceiling, instantly turning the archive into a waterfall. The doctor cursed, covering his face with his hands from the icy water, and lost his orientation for a second. This moment was enough for Angelina. She pushed the overweight doctor with her shoulder. He slipped on the wet floor and fell into a puddle with a crash. Angelina went out into the corridor. Bored, the siren howled so loudly that it hurt my ears. Panic began in the corridors. Nurses were running. Patients were being taken out of the rooms, taking advantage of the commotion. Angelina mingled with the crowd of visitors and ran out into the street through the main entrance. Clutching a wet bag with documents to her chest, she jumped into the first taxi she came across. Railway station. No to the center, to the shopping center. She ordered the driver. She needed to get lost, change clothes, come to her senses. She returned home only in the evening. The gates of the fortress were open, but two black security cars were visible at the entrance. Not the Zovodsk security, but unfamiliar. Strong guys in leather jackets stopped mercenaries. As soon as Angelina entered the house, Taras flew out to meet her. His face was godlike with rage. He grabbed her by the hair and threw her onto the sofa in the living room. "You trash," he growled, hanging on for days. Thought she was the smartest. The doctor told me everything. You have the papers. Give it back. I don't have them, Angelina lied, looking him straight in the eyes. There was no more fear. It was just a cold calculation. I sent copies to my lawyer. If something happens to me, they will go to the prosecutor's office, and to the syndicate. I know about your debts. Taras froze. The mention of the syndicate hit him like a punch in the gut. He stepped back, nervously adjusting his cuffs. "You won't dare," he hissed. "You live in this house, eat my bread. Your house is mortgaged." Angelina snapped. "Your bread is bought with stolen money." Taras clenched his fists, but did not hit. Understood that she had driven him into a corner. "Okay," he breathed out, pulling himself together. You want war. There will be war for you, but first we will play the last act. Father is coming tomorrow. He signs the deed of gift. If you make a peep, if you give him even a hint, he will understand what is happening here. I swear, Angelina, I will bury you and your girl in the forest, and no one will find you." He walked to the window and waved his hand towards the gate. You see the guys? These are my new friends. From today you don't leave the house. No calls, walks. You cook dinner, meet your father, smile, and remain silent. Understood? Understood, Angelina answered quietly. The next day passed in tense anticipation. Angelina was cooking. She chopped vegetables, baked meat, and set the table with family silver. She moved like an automaton. But a plan was forming in her head. This was her last chance. Tara's father was a tyrant, but he was a man of honor. Old school. He did not tolerate lies. He finds out the truth. In the evening, a massive armored SUV drove up to the gate. Tara's father got out of the car, leaning on a cane with a silver tipped. Was 70, but he looked like an old oak tree, thick, powerful, indestructible. Taras met him at the threshold, showering him with pleasantries. "Father, come in. Come in." What a day. A historical moment. Peter walked into the living room without taking off his heavy coat. He looked around the room with a tenacious, prickly gaze from his thick eyebrows. "Where is the grandson?" he asked, ignoring the greetings of Agatha, who was huddled in the corner. Now. Taras began to fuss. "Angelina, bring an Heir." Angelina left the nursery. In her arms she held Misha, wrapped in a blue blanket with the family coat of arms. Taras beamed. Here he is, Father Mikhail Tarasovic, our blood, our pride. Peter came closer, disgustedly pointed his finger at the blanket, and looked at the sleeping child. Too small, he muttered. Well, oh well, the main thing is, boy, are the documents ready? Everything is ready. Dad. Taras rushed to the table, where the folder with the deed of gift was already lying. Only your signature, and the plant is ours, forever. The father took off his coat, threw it on the chair, and sat down at the head of the table. Pour with, he commanded. Angelina placed a cup of tea in front of him. Her hands didn't shake. She knew what she would do now. Pyotr Ivanovich, she said loudly and clearly. There was silence in the room. Taras tensed. His hand lay on the steak knife lying on the table. His gaze is metallic, lightning. Shut up, you fool. I have a surprise for you, Angelina continued. Without looking at her husband, Taras wanted to show you only half the truth. But I believe that you should see all the family's wealth. She placed Misha in a portable cradle on the table in front of his grandfather, and then she turned around and opened the door into the corridor. Nina came out from there. She carried the second cradle in her arms. There was a girl lying in it. Taras turned white. Agatha screamed and covered her mouth with her hand. Angelina took the cradle from Nina and placed it on the table next to Misha. Meet me, she said calmly. This is your granddaughter, Mikhail's sister. They are twins. Taras jumped up, overturning the table. She's delusional, he yelled, his voice breaking into his temple. She has postpartum psychosis. Father, don't listen to her. This is the maid's daughter. He just sheltered her. Angelina took out folded sheets of paper from her apron pocket. The same ones from the clinic. Here is the birth certificate. She placed them in front of her father. The boy is born to Agatha, the girl was born to me. Taras replaced them in order to receive the inheritance, stole my daughter from me, and forced me to raise his mistress' son. Taras froze with a knife in his hand. The room became so quiet that you could hear the grandfather clock ticking. Angelina looked at her father-in-law, expecting an explosion, expecting rage, screams of curses against the prodigal son. Peter slowly took the papers. He read them carefully on the girl, then he looked at the children. For a boy, for a girl, and he yawned. Angelina blinked. It seemed to her that the thunderstorm of the city, a man who could fire the director of the workshop with a glance, put down the papers and looked boredly at his son. Is that all? He asked with a strong voice. Throughout the performance, Taras lowered the knife in confusion. Dad, this is a lie. She faked everything. Peter hit the table with his palm. The sound was like a gunshot. Shut up, the old man barked. Do you think I'm an idiot? You think I don't know what's going on in my city? He stood up, leaning on his cane, and approached Taras closely. I knew about your prank with Agatha a year ago, I said, looking into my son's eyes with icy contempt. I knew that Angelina was carrying a girl. I knew that you agreed with the doctor about a substitution. Your every move was reported to me. Puppy. Angelina looked at her father-in-law in shock. You knew and you let it happen? Her father-in-law didn't even turn to look at her. I don't care about biology. He abandoned Angelina. I don't care who gave birth to whom. I needed results. The heir. If my son cannot make him with his wife, let him make him his wife's sister. Who cares? There is only one blood. He turned again to Taras. Was ready to close my eyes to the dirt on morality. To your womanish intrigues. But there is something that I do not forgive. Peter pulled out an envelope from the inside pocket of his jacket and threw it in Taras' face. Debts, he growled. Syndicate, you pawned my factory to the bandits. You sold my life's work to cover your losses. Tara's backed away. Papers scattered across the floor. Dad. I will return everything. As soon as I get a signature, I will buy everything. You won't buy anything. Peter's voice boomed throughout the house. You're a weakling. You're nothing. A man who cannot control his wife, your mistress, and his debts cannot run a factory. You thought I would sign the deed of gift. I came here to tell you personally. You are fired. You are no longer the director. You are nobody. And you won't get a penny. Peter turned to the exit. I'm changing my will tomorrow morning. The plant is transferred to the management of the board of directors. And you, Tara's, deal with your bandits yourself. He took his coat and headed to the door, tapping his cane on the parquet floor. There was dead silence in the room. Tara stood among the scattered papers. Pale as a sheet, his world collapsed, and in his eyes, fixed on the back of his departing father, Angelina saw no repentance, she saw madness. Dad. Wait, Tara shouted, and his voice was terrible. You can't leave. Tara's rushed after his father, knocking over a heavy chair. He caught up with the old man already in the hall, right at the door. You won't leave, he yelled, grabbing his father by the shoulder and turning him towards him. You don't dare take everything away. Worked at this factory for 20 years. This is mine. Staggered, but stood firm, shook off his son's hand in disgust. Take your hands off. You won't get anything while I'm alive. Tomorrow I will throw you out of the board of directors. You will work as a janitor and work off your debts. Tara's eyes became bloodshot. There was nothing human in them anymore. Only the animal fear of a hunted beast, and blind rage. Pushed his father in the chest with both hands, strongly. With all the accumulated hatred, the old man could not resist. He waved his arms. The cane rolled with a clang on the marble floor, and with a dull thud he fell backward, hitting the back of his head on the bottom step of the stairs. A ringing silence hung in the house. Even Agatha stopped squealing. Peter wheezed. His face began to rapidly turn purple. The hand frantically pressed the collar of the shirt, tearing the buttons. Tried to breathe, but no air came. Heart, he wheezed. Pills, I in your pocket. Angelina rushed to him. Me now. I'll call an ambulance, she screamed, rummaging through the pockets of his coat for the medicine. But Tara's grabbed her hand. His fingers clenched like a steel vice. Don't you dare, he said quietly. Angelina looked up at him. She saw in them a terrible understanding. Tara's, he feels bad. A heart attack. He needs help. No. Tara's took her away from her suffocating father. Doesn't need anything anymore. He looked at the old man writhing on the floor with icy calm. He dies now. The will remain old, and the only heir. The plant is mine. Everything is mine. You're crazy. Angelina broke free and rushed to the doors, pounding on the glass. Security, help, here. The person feels bad. Behind the glass stood those same strong guys in leather jackets. One of them lazily turned his head, looked at the screaming woman, at the lying old man, and turned away. Lighting a cigarette, Tara's paid them. They didn't care, and no one will come. Angelina, Tara's grinned, approaching the bar and pouring himself some whiskey. Sit down and watch. This is history. The king is dead. Long live the king. On the floor, Peter made a final, gurgling wheeze. His body arched and went limp. The eyes glazed over, staring at the ceiling with silent reproach. Angelina covered her mouth with her hand so as not to scream. It was murder. Not with a knife, not with poison, but murder. Tara's just killed his own father without doing anything. Tara's took a sip, stepped over his father's body, and kicked the cane. Problem solved. Tomorrow I enter into inheritance rights. pay off the syndicate and we'll live like kings." At that moment, stomping was heard on the stairs. Angelina raised her head and saw Agatha. My sister was dragging a huge sports bag filled with something heavy. She was wearing a coat thrown directly over her evening dress. "Where are you going?" Therese barked. Agatha froze in the middle of the stairs. The bag fell out of her hands. The zipper came apart and wads of money fell onto the step. Dollars, euros, rubles, everything that was in the home safe. "I'm leaving," she screamed hysterically. "You're crazy. You killed him. I don't want to go to jail. I take my share for the child and leave." And the son asked Therese, slowly rising towards her, "Are you abandoning your son?" "Yes." Choke on this rage, Agatha squealed. "Life is more precious to me." Therese rushed up the stairs, grabbed Agat by the hair and dragged him down. She scratched, bit, squealed, but he was stronger. "Nobody will leave here," he growled as he dragged her across the hall past her father's corpse. "Our family now, forever." He dragged her to the basement door, opened it and threw Agatha into the darkness. "Sit there. Think about your mother's duty," he shouted and slammed the door. Turning the key in the lock, from behind the door came muffled blows and screams. Nina and the girl were there downstairs. Now they were all hostages. Therese returned to the living room. Breathing heavily, he straightened his disheveled hair and straightened his jacket. "Angelina," he said almost affectionately, "clean it up here. Collect money. Cover your father with something. Tomorrow we'll call the doctor and say that we found him cold this morning. Heart, age. It happens." Angelina stood at the window. She took the heavy bronze figurine from the fireplace. "Don't come near me," she said. Therese laughed. "Where are you going, stupid? I am now the owner of the entire city." Suddenly the courtyard lit up with blue and red flashes. The howl of the sirens cut through the silence of the night. Therese froze. The smile faded from his face. "Police," he muttered. "Who called you?" "No." Angelina shook her head. "I didn't have time." The gates opened. Tara's security didn't even flinch. They simply stepped aside to let the convoy of cars pass. But it wasn't an ambulance, and unusual police. What came out of the lead car was not the head of the police department, with whom Therese had been drinking yesterday, but the bailiffs, accompanied by riot police. They started banging on the door. "Open it up, police." "Court decision." Therese backed away. "What court?" he whispered. "What are they talking about?" The door was broken down with one blow. Masked men with machine guns burst into the hall. Behind them came a short man in a gray suit with a folder in his hands. Therese recognized him. This was the lawyer of his main competitor, the owner of a neighboring holding, Citizen Taras Petrovich. The lawyer asked dryly, stepping over the body of the deceased, not even surprised by the corpse. "You are served with an immediate eviction notice." "What?" Therese sank to the floor. "What eviction? This is my home. My factory and no longer." The lawyer opened the folder. "The lender to whom you pledged all the property is the Vector Company. You thought they were bandits from a syndicate at Heir. This is a subsidiary of your competitor. You are late on your bill today at 6:00 p.m. According to the agreement, ownership of the house, land, and shares of the plant transferred to the creditor a minute ago." Therese looked at him with glassy eyes. "This is a raider takeover. This is Tara's business." The lawyer snapped his fingers. "Security. Take the strangers out. You have 5 minutes to get ready." Therese turned his gaze to his father's body. The old man was right. He lost everything. The house is not his. The plant is not his. Even my father's corpse now lay on someone else's floor. 5 minutes. Therese wheezed, stood up slowly. The same crazy fire flashed in his eyes as before his father's death. "Okay," he said quietly, "I'll leave." But I won't leave empty-handed. He turned sharply and rushed to the table where Misha was sleeping in the cradle. Taras grabbed the cradle with Misha with one hand, and with the other he pulled the hunting carbine from the wall mount, which hung above the fireplace like a decoration, but he was charged. Taras always kept his weapon ready for battle. "Tio, the car," he yelled, pointing the gun at Angelina. Fast. The bailiffs froze. The riot police raised their machine guns, but did not dare to shoot. There was a baby in the hands of the madman. "Don't be stupid," the Special Forces commander shouted. "Put the baby down." Back. Taras squealed, backing towards the exit to the courtyard through the terrace. "I'll shoot him. I'll shoot her. I have nothing to lose." He pushed Angelina in the back with the barrel. "Go. Start the car." Angelina stumbled, but stood firm. She saw her husband's eyes, the empty glass eyes of a man who had stepped over the line. "Will actually shoot." They ran out to the backyard, where his personal SUV was parked, prepared for hunting. The snow was falling like a wall, the wind was howling, drowning out the screams of the police, who were afraid to storm the house because of the hostages. Behind the wheel, Taras threw the cradle with the crying Misha into the back seat, and jumped into the front passenger seat without lowering the carabiner. Angelina got behind the wheel. Her hands were shaking so much that she could hardly press the start button with her finger. The engine roared. "Drive," Taras commanded, "through the forest, to the hunting lodge. There are snowmobiles there. Let's go." Through the swamps, the car rushed off, breaking through a snowdrift, and flew out through the back gate onto the forest road. The blizzard was such that the light from the headlights was only enough for a couple of meters. The trees flashed on the sides with black skeletons. The car was thrown from side to side on an icy track. Taras sat, clutching the door handle, muttering to himself as he spoke. Nothing. We'll get out of it. I have friends, real friends, not like these rats. I in London. Oligarch Markov has no children. He dreamed of a son. I'll give him Misha, for a lot of money. For a lot of money, he will raise him as his own, and he will give me a new passport and bank account. We'll start all over again. Angelina listened to his nonsense and felt cold sweat running down her back. Was going to sell the child, sell Misha as a puppy to save your own skin. Taras, this is madness, she said quietly, peering into the snow cover. They will find you. You don't stand a chance. Shut up. He poked the dole into her side. You don't understand anything, boy. This is my golden ticket. This is my blood, breed. Markov would sell his soul for such genetics. This is the elite, blue blood, behind us. Misha was bursting with tears. Angelina looked in the rearview mirror. A small lump in a huge machine is a toy in the hands of a madman. She remembered her daughter, who remained in the basement with Agatha. Is she alive? Will the bailiffs have time to find them? If we get to the house, he will kill me. Angelina clearly understood. Doesn't need me. He only needs a product, a child. Will leave me in the forest or shoot me as a witness. A sharp turn appeared ahead. The road ran along a cliff above the river. There was no fence there. Angelina squeezed the steering wheel. This was her only chance. Taras, look, she shouted, pointing her finger into the darkness. The police are there. Taras twitched, turning his head to the side window, where, at that moment, Angelina sharply turned the steering wheel to the right, straight into a snowdrift, away from the cliff, but into a tree. The car skidded. Taras did not have time to react. The blow was terrible. The airbags shot out in white clouds, filling the cabin with the smell of burning and talcum powder. The glass splashed with shards. The world turned upside down, spun and went dark. Angelina woke up from the cold, The windshield was broken and snow was blowing into the cabin, and my head was throbbing and there was a taste of blood in my mouth. She turned her head. Terrace was hanging unconscious from his seatbelt. His head was thrown back. There was a deep abrasion on his forehead. The carbine lay at my feet. It was quiet behind. Misha, Angelina croaked, unfastening her belt. She climbed into the back seat with difficulty. The cradle turned over, but got stuck between the backs of the chairs. Angelina pulled the child out. He was silent, but breathing, just fell asleep or lost consciousness from shock. She felt it. The bones seemed to be intact. There is no blood. It was necessary to leave. The car could have caught fire or Terrace could have woken up. Angelina wrapped the child in her fur coat, pulled him out of the car, through the broken window and fell into the snow. The forest around was noisy. The wind howled like a hungry wolf. She crawled away from the car, dragging the bundle with the child behind her. Had no strength. My legs got stuck in the deep snow. Suddenly, something jingled in Taras' pocket, which was open. Telephone. He fell out into the snow when Taras was shaken by the impact. The screen glowed in the dark. Angelina, obeying some instinct, picked it up. Can I call for help? There was usually no connection in this wilderness, but suddenly, there was an unread message on the screen, from a subscriber. Doctor, it came 10 minutes ago. While they were still driving, Angelina pressed open. The message was short, but it hit her harder than the accident. Terrace, you are an idiot. I'm already at the airport, so I can tell the truth. That DNA test that I showed you at the beginning, where you are supposedly the boy's father, it was a linden tree. I did a double blind test for myself. The boy is not yours. Agata had another guy. Some visiting touring musician. You are sterile, my friend. Mumps caused complications in childhood. Remember, I treated you. You can't have children at all. You ruined your life for someone else's bastard, happy to stay in the snowdrift. Angelina dropped her phone in the snow. She looked at the child she was holding to her chest. This heir, for whom Terrace killed his father, betrayed his wife, got into debt and lost everything. Misha was not his son, was nobody. An accidental fruit of Agatha's affair. A groan came from the wrecked car. Terrace came to his senses. Angelina picked up the child and, without looking back, ran into the forest, where through the trees the dim lights of a distant village could be seen. She needed to save this strange boy, not for Terrace, not for the sake of inheritance, but simply because he was the only innocent one in this hell. Angelina made her way through the snowdrifts. Every step was a struggle. My feet in thin boots no longer felt cold. They simply went numb. The wind whipped ice grains across her face, filling her eyes, but she clutched the bundle with the child to her as if it were the last ember of warmth in the universe. Misha didn't cry anymore. He calmed down, and this frightened her most of all. Only faint breathing on her neck indicated that he was alive. Ahead, through the snowstorm, a yellow light loomed. Village. It was very small. Just a few houses along the road, but there were people there. It was warm there. She reached the first building with a post office sign. The door was not locked. Locks were rarely hung in such a wilderness. Angelina fell inside, tripping over the threshold. The inside smelled of old paper, sealing wax and stove smoke. An elderly woman in a down scarf was dozing behind the desk. Seeing a woman bursting out of the night with crazy eyes and a child in her arms, she screamed and dropped her knitting. Lord dear, where are you from? What's happened? The phone. Angelina wheezed, sliding down the wall onto the bench. I need a phone, urgently. The postwoman fussily pushed an old disk drive towards her. Call, maybe dial the district police officer, or to the hospital. Angelina grabbed the phone. The fingers didn't obey. They were like wood. Who should I call? The police? No, the local police chief was drinking with Tara's cognac yesterday. We'll hand her over to her husband as soon as he finds out where she is. The ambulance will arrive in an hour, and Tara's can be here in 5 minutes. She needed someone whom Tara's was afraid of, someone as stronger than him, someone who had already taken everything from him and wanted to finish him off. Business competitor, the owner of the Vector Company, who bought Tara's debts. Angelina remembered his number. She saw it in that same folder in the safe, on a business card pinned to the loan agreement. The musician's memory, accustomed to memorizing complex scores, now gave her the necessary numbers. The beeps went on for a long time. Finally, the phone was picked up. I'm listening. The voice was calm and authoritative. This is Angelina, she said, trying to speak clearly, despite the friendship between her teeth. Tara's wife. There was a pause at the other end. Unexpectedly, he said, without much surprise, your husband is now on the run. Angelina. You want to report his whereabouts? I want a deal, she interrupted. I know where he is. He's following me. But I have something better. Have a black accounting department for the plant, schemes for withdrawing money to offshore companies, shell companies, bribes to officials. Saw these documents, and know the names of the companies and account numbers. And what do you want in return? The protection. Right now, I'm at the village post office. Tara's is somewhere nearby. He is armed and dangerous. If you arrive before him or with him, I will give you everything. You can plant it for a long time, not for debts, but for fraud on an especially large scale. He'll be there in 20 minutes. He answered briefly. Why people are closer than you think. Lock the door. Angelina hung up. Close the door, she shouted to the postwoman. To the bolt. Fast. The old woman, not understanding anything, but seeing the horror in the eyes of her guest, trotted towards the entrance and threw a heavy hook. Angelina sat in the corner, away from the windows. She unfolded the blanket. Misha opened his eyes and squeaked weakly. Alive. Hush, little one. Hush, she whispered, rocking him to sleep. It will all be over soon. But time passed painfully slowly. Every second seemed like an eternity. The wind beat against the windows. The shutters creaked. Angelina thought she heard footsteps, heavy steps crunching through the snow. Bam! The door shook from the impact. The postwoman squealed and hid under the counter. Angelina. Tara's roar drowned out the howl of the blizzard. I know you're here. Open it up. Bam! The hook held, but the wood cracked. Angelina pressed herself into a corner, shielding the child with herself. She had nothing to defend herself with, only the truth. The same truth that she learned from the doctor's message. The glass in the window shattered into pieces. A hand in a bloody glove stuck into the opening, fumbled for the latch and opened the frame. Tara's fell inside, covered in snow, with a broken forehead from which blood flowed, pouring into his eye. He looked like a dead man risen. Didn't have a carbine with him. Apparently he lost it in the forest or broke it, but in his hand he clutched a mantle. Give me your son, he croaked, staggering. His gaze was wild and darting. Give it back. This is my ticket out of here. Leave, I'll fix everything. He stepped towards her, raising the crowbar. I'll come closer, shouted Angelina. Tara, stop. It's over. Nothing is over as long as I have an heir, he screamed, spitting saliva. Markov is waiting. The helicopter will be at the border. I need a boy. Angelina stood up. She was no longer afraid of him. She felt only spitting and pity for him. You don't have an heir, Tara's, she said loudly and clearly. Tara's froze. What are you talking about? You don't have a son, and never have. The doctor sent me a message. Tricked you with the DNA test. This boy is not yours. Agatha took him out with some musician. Tara's blinked, blood dripping from his forehead onto the floor. You're lying, he whispered uncertainly. No, Tara's, you are sterile. The doctor knew this. You had mumps as a child. You can't have children. You killed your father. You lost the factory. You ruined our lives for the sake of someone else's child. For the sake of emptiness. You, barren flower. Tara's. Angelina expected him to collapse, that he would cry, that the realization of his monstrous mistake would crush him, but Tara suddenly began to shake. His shoulders began to shake. A sound came from his throat, not a sob, but a laugh. He laughed loudly, hysterically, throwing back his head. This laughter was worse than any threats. The postwoman under the table began to pray out loud. Do you think I didn't know? Tara's exhaled through laughter, wiping the blood from his face with his sleeve. Do you think I'm such an idiot? He looked at Angelina with clear, angry eyes. I knew I was empty. I knew it from the army. The doctor told me 20 years ago. Angelina was taken aback. Did you know? But why then? Why all this performance with Agatha, with substitution? Because no one cares about the truth, Tara screamed, hitting the table with a tire iron so that splinters flew in all directions. Father doesn't care. The workers don't care. They need a picture. They need an heir. They need a symbol of fertility, strength, procreation. He took a step towards her, his face distorted in a grimace of hatred. Created a myth, created a legend about a strong man who gives birth to sons. This is power, Angelina. People follow those who have money and who have children. They knew that I was barren. They would have devoured me, and why father would have thrown me out. My partners would have laughed. I needed this kid as a prop, like a banner. Extended his hand, twisted like a clawed paw. I don't care whose sperm is there, even a neighbor, even a bald devil. This child is my shield, my passport to life. Give it here. People love beautiful children. They will forgive me everything if I come out to them with a baby in my arms. IT works, stupid. IT always works. Tara's rushed at her, throwing the table away. Angelina jumped back, but rested her back against the cold stove. There was nowhere to run. He swung a tire iron to knock the child out of her hands. Give it back, he roared. At that moment, the post office door flew off its hinges from a powerful blow from outside. Figures in black camouflage, with tactical flashlights on the barrels of machine guns, appeared in the opening, face to the floor. Special forces are working. A thunderous voice filled the room. Terrace turned around, blinded by the rays of the lanterns, stood frozen with his mount raised, like a grotesque statue of madness. Behind the special forces, Voronov stepped into the opening. He was wearing a long corduroy coat, calm and unperturbed, as if he had come to a business meeting, and not to a village hut in the middle of the night. Lower the iron, Tara's, he said disgustedly. You look pathetic. Tara's looked around hauntedly. .5 gun barrels were looking at him. He slowly unclenched his fingers. The crowbar fell with a crash onto the wooden floor. This is my son, he muttered quietly. Without the former fire, I just wanted to pick up my son. Voronov nodded to the fighters. Put him to rest, and be careful. We need him alive for trial. The special forces knocked Tara's down and twisted his arms behind his back. The handcuffs clicked. Tara's did not resist. He lay with his cheek on the dirty floor and looked at Angelina with an empty gaze. He's mine, he whispered. My props. Voronov approached Angelina. Are you okay? He asked, taking out a clean raft and handing it to her. Angelina nodded, wiping away the tears that suddenly poured out. Thank you, she whispered. Me. I promised you documents. I end time, Voronov looked at the child. Now you need warmth. And get ready. Tomorrow is the plant's anniversary. And it seems that you and I will have an interesting performance there. He motioned her towards the exit, where a warmed-up limousine was already standing. Angelina hugged the strange, unwanted boy closer to her and stepped into the night, leaving behind her husband, who loved not his son, but his lies about him. The limousine walked smoothly, as if floating over a snow-covered road, but Angelina could not relax. She sat on a leather seat, still holding the sleeping Misha close to her, and looked at her reflection in the dark glass, a tired woman with disheveled hair, in someone else's fur coat, with someone else's child in her arms. But there was no longer fear in this woman's eyes. There was determination there, cold and sharp, like ice on a river. Voronov sat opposite, studying documents on a tablet. "We're going to town," he said without looking up. "My people have already taken your sister and your daughter from the basement. They are safe in a private clinic under guard." Angelina exhaled, feeling like a huge stone was falling from her soul. "The daughter is alive?" and she asked Taras. "He is being followed in a special forces vehicle, but he has good lawyers and connections. We'll try to get out. Today is the plant's anniversary. The whole city will gather in the Palace of Culture. Governor, ministers, press." Taras planned his triumphant performance there, and he will try to do it even in handcuffs. Is an artist, Angelina. He knows how to play to the crowd. Angelina remembered her husband's crazy laughter in the post office. "People love beautiful children. They will forgive me everything. I'm an artist too," Anna said quietly. "I am the director of a music school. I know how to run a room." Voronov looked up at her and smiled for the first time, with respect at the corner of his lips. "Then we need to prepare. You have 2 hours before the ceremony starts." They did not arrive home, but to a hotel in the city center. The suite has become the headquarters. Stylists, makeup artists, Voronov's assistants. Angelina refused to rest. She took a shower, washing away the dirt, blood, and fear of the last few days. She chose a formal black pantsuit, no jewelry except for her wedding ring, which she planned to take off on stage. She pulled her hair into a tight bun. She looked not like a victim, but like a judge ready to pass judgment. Angelina, Voronov's assistant, handed her a folder. "Here are scans of all the documents you gave us: birth certificate, bank statements, notices of confiscation and property." Connected our laptop to the projector in the hall. "When you give a sign, we will display it on the main screen." "I'm ready," she said. The Palace of Culture was shining with lights. The square in front of him was packed with people, the plant workers, their families, the city elite. Everyone came to celebrate the centenary of the plant's breadwinner. A brass band played and free balloons and flags were distributed. People did not know that the plant was already bankrupt, and their director was a criminal. Angelina entered through the service entrance. There was a bustle behind the scenes. The musicians were tuning their instruments. The children from the choreography group were adjusting their costumes. Nobody knew what was happening. Everyone was waiting for Taras. Angelina, the head teacher of the school, ran up to her, clasping her hands. "You are here. God bless. Thought you were sick." "Where is Taras Petrovich?" "The governor is already in the box. Everyone is waiting for the start." "Taras is delayed," Angelina answered calmly. "Start without it. I will make an opening statement." She went on stage. The huge hall was buzzing like a beehive of thousands of faces, thousands of eyes. The spotlights hit my eyes, blinding me. Angelina approached the microphone. She's used to standing here announcing concert numbers, but today she was conducting not an orchestra, but fate. "Good evening. Dear friends, her voice sounded firmly, echoing under the arches of the hall, have gathered here to celebrate the century-old history of our plant, history of labor, honor and dignity. The hall fell silent. My husband, Taras Petrovich, really wanted to be here, she continued. He was preparing a surprise for you. He wanted to present you with an heir, a symbol of the future. At that moment, there was a noise in the side passage. The doors swung open with a bang. Taras walked down the aisle, pushing aside the palace guards. He was in the same torn coat with a plaster on his forehead, dirty, but with burning eyes. Two policemen were running after him, but he apparently broke away or persuaded them to give him the last word. Walked towards the stage like a prophet, with his arms outstretched. I am here, he shouted, his voice without a microphone drowning out the whispers of the crowd. I am here, my people, don't believe your rumors. The audience gasped. People jumped up from their seats. Taras ran up the steps onto the stage. He snatched the microphone from the presenter, who was standing on the side. Friends, gasping for breath, he croaked in the speaker, pardon my appearance. We were attacked to bandits, raiders. We had an accident. I saved my son, saved my wife. They want to take the factory away from us. They want to close the shops and throw you out onto the street. He pointed his finger towards the box where Voronov was sitting. All of them, Voronov and his gang. But I won't give up. As long as I'm alive, the plant will work. I pulled the family out of the fire. I will pull it out of the factory. The crowd became agitated. People started applauding. Taras knew how to speak. He put pressure on pity, on fear, on patriotism. He turned his fall into a heroic epic. Angelina. He turned to his wife, holding out his hand. Tell me how I saved you. Tell me how much I love our city. He came close to her, blocking her from the audience, and hissed through his teeth so that the microphone would not catch her. Play along with me, creature, or I'll tell you how you stole the child. We'll sit down together. Angelina looked at him. Those shifty eyes, the foam at the corners of your lips, was pathetic, and he was dangerous. But his time was up. She did not back down. She straightened up, straightened her shoulders and raised her hand, gesture of a conductor demanding silence, and looking straight into her husband's eyes, she pressed a button on the sound engineer's remote control, which was mounted in the podium. The sound of Taras' microphone ended with a sharp click. He continued to open his mouth and scream, but only the first rows heard him. He hit the microphone, but it was dead, and the silence that followed, Angelina's voice sounded like a sentence. Turn on the screen. The huge backdrop of the stage, on which the anniversary logo had previously hung, flashed with white light. The first image appeared. Birth certificate, large of mother, Agatha, father, Taras. The hall exhaled. A murmur ran through the rows. Second image, the girl's birth certificate, mother, Angelina, father, Taras. And next to it is a medical card with blood type. Mismatch. My husband lied to you, Angelina said into her microphone. He lied to you that he had a son. He lied to you about being the father. He switched children to get his father's inheritance. Stole my daughter and hid her in the basement, passing her off as an orphan. Taras rushed around the stage, trying to block the screen, but the image was huge. He waved his arms and shouted something, but no one listened to him. Third image, bank notification. The property has been seized. The plant is bankrupt. Owner of Vector LLC. The family no longer owns the plant. Angelina continued, emphasizing every word. Taras lost it. He pawned your jobs to cover his personal debts to criminals. He's not a hero. Is bankrupt and a fraud. Taras froze. He realized that this was the end. The crowd was buzzing, but it was no longer applause. It was anger. People stood up, whistled, and shouted shame. Terrace turned to Angelina. A metal object glittered in his hand, maybe a pen. Maybe a knife that he stole from the buffet table. "I'll kill you," he shouted silently and rushed at her. But he didn't have time to take even 2 steps. A woman came out from behind the scenes. It was Agatha. She looked terrible. The face is swollen from tears. The dress is wrinkled and there are abrasions on the arms. But she walked firmly. She walked up to the stand with Angelina's microphone. Angelina retreated. "Give her space." Agatha grabbed the counter with both hands as if it was the only support in the world. "Stop," she shouted into the hall. "Listen to me." Terrace stopped when he saw her. "You," he croaked. "How did you get out?" "I ran away." "Terrace," said Agatha, looking at him with hatred and pain. "When the special forces broke the doors, I got out through the basement window." She turned to the hall. Tears flowed down her cheeks, smearing her mascara. "I want to repent. Before all of you. Before God." She took a deep breath. "The boy Terrace showed you. This is my son. I gave birth to him, not from Terrace, from another man." Terrace knew this, knew he was infertile. But he kept me silent. He forced me to give the child away. He made me watch my sister raise my son. "You think it's her child." The hall froze. It was like a soap opera, but happening in reality here and now. "Why?" Someone shouted from the audience. "Why did you do this?" "Because he blackmailed me." Agatha screamed, pointing at Terrace. "I hit a man 3 years ago. I left the scene of the accident." Terrace knew everything. He hid the evidence. Said, "You will do what I say or you will rot in prison." I was his slave. I was afraid. Terrace backed away. He looked around looking for a way out, but the exits were blocked by Voronov's guards. "This is a lie," he squealed. "It's crazy." They both started talking, and the father, Angelina, asked quietly into the microphone, "Tell them about your father, Agatha." Agatha sobbed. "Pyotr Ivanovich, grandfather, he died yesterday. He had a heart attack." Terrace did not allow an ambulance to be called, stood and watched his father die, said, "Let him die. Then I will get everything." He killed his father for an inheritance that was no longer there. This was the final blow. The crowd roared. People were rushing to the stage. It weren't for the riot police cordon, which at that moment burst into the hall through the central doors. Terrace would have been torn to pieces. "Everyone stay in their places." A voice boomed through a megaphone. An investigative committee is working. People in blue uniforms with shoulder straps entered the hall. Not local. Bought. Feds. They went up on stage. 2 officers approached Terrace. Didn't resist. He just went limp and turned into a rag doll. His hands were twisted behind his back and the handcuffs clicked. "Taras Petrovich, you have been arrested on suspicion of fraud, forgery of documents, blackmail, and leaving in danger resulting in death," the investigator read dryly. Taras was dragged towards the exit, did not look at the hall or at his wife. He looked at the floor, saying something unintelligible. His legend collapsed, burying him in rubble. Another officer approached Agatha. "Citizen, you will also have to travel with us. The confession will be taken into account, but the accident case will be resumed." Agatha nodded. She didn't resist. She approached Angelina. "Forgive me," she whispered. "Take care of him, and to my son. He doesn't belong in an orphanage." "I'll take care," Angelina answered. "I'm talking about him and his daughter." Agatha was taken away. Angelina was left alone on stage. The screen behind her went dark. The hall was silent. Stunned by what they saw, she looked at the people. On their confused faces, they have lost the idol. They have lost confidence in the future. They were scared. Angelina approached the microphone for the last time. "The plant will not close," she said firmly. The new owner, Mr. Voronov, guaranteed the preservation of all jobs. The anniversary will take place, but this will be a celebration of honest work, not lies. Orchestra. She waved her hand to the director, who had been standing in a daze with a wand in his hand all this time. Play. The music started playing, powerful, solemn overture. Angelina turned around and slowly walked backstage without looking back. Her back was straight, like a piano wire. She played her part, and she won. Backstage, Angelina was met by Voronov. He did not applaud, but his eyes showed respect mixed with apprehension. He realized that this woman was not just a victim of circumstances, but a player who would have to be reckoned with. The effective, he said briefly. Taras was taken away. The investigation will be long, but with your testimony about leaving your father in danger, he will get a life sentence. Are you ready to testify? I'm ready, nodded Angelina. I'll tell you everything about how he stood and watched. How he didn't let me call a doctor. How I rejoiced at my father's death. Okay. Voronov looked at his watch. But there is also bad news, Angelina. The show is over. The prose of life begins. Tomorrow morning, my lawyers and bailiffs will come to inventory the property. The house, cars, bills, everything goes to the Vector Company to pay off the debt. Paused to let her realize what she had heard. I'm sorry, but you'll have to move out. I'll give you a week to get ready. This is a gesture of goodwill. Angelina looked at him calmly, and her purse, next to the baby's pacifier, was an old, yellowed envelope. She found it by accident when, on that terrible night, she was looking for medicine for the dying Pyotr Ivanovich. The envelope fell out of the old family Bible lying on the stone shelf, which Taras threw to the floor in a rage. And the confusion, no one paid attention to him. Angelina picked it up mechanically and put it in her pocket. She just opened it this morning at the hotel, and what she read there changed everything. Don't write me off to evict, she said softly. Let's talk about business. Voronov raised an eyebrow in surprise. About business, you have nothing, Angelina. You are bankrupt due to your husband's fault. I have land, she said. Voronov grinned. The land under the house is also pledged, and the land under the plant? Asked Angelina. The smile disappeared from Voronov's face. What? Angelina took out an envelope. Tara's father was a tyrant, but he was a wise man. He knew his son. He knew that Taras was weak, greedy and stupid. Foresaw that sooner or later Taras would lose everything. Therefore, 5 years ago, when I had just taken charge of the music school and showed myself to be a tough manager, he gave me a gift. She unfolded the document. The paper was old, with watermarks and official seals. This is a deed of gift, she said, handing him a copy. On a land plot of 50 hectares, cadastral number, same as the territory number of your new plant. Voronov snatched the paper. His eyes quickly ran over the lines. Give my daughter-in-law, Angelina Viktorovna, full and undivided ownership. He muttered. This is impossible. Checked the registers. This is an old document, certified by a notary who was a friend of Pyotr Ivanovich. Angelina explained. It was not entered into the electronic database until the death of the donor or donee. This was the old man's will. He wanted to protect the land from his son's creditors. Factory workshops, machines, equipment. Yes, they are yours. You took them for debts, but they are standing on my land. She took a step towards him. Now she was dictating the terms. You can pick up your machines and take them out, but this will kill production, or we can enter into a lease agreement. Long term, at market price. Voronov slowly lowered the paper. He looked at Angelina with a new look. Saw before him not the wife of a bankrupt, but an equal partner. You are a dangerous woman. Angelina Viktorovna," he said with a groan of admiration. The old man knew who to trust. He chose the true heir, not by blood, but by spirit. "What are your terms?" he asked. He was already doing it in a tone. Angelina began to list the land lease for 49 years. "The amount is fixed, with inflation, indexation, plus complete repairs and maintenance of the fortress estate, which remains in my ownership as part of the land plot. And one more thing, yes. You will help me with custody. Am formalizing the adoption of Mikhail and restoring the rights to my daughter. Oh, orphanages. The children will stay with me." Voronov extended his hand. Agreed. My lawyers will have the papers ready by morning. A month later, repairs to the fortress were completed. A high-end brick walls no longer seemed like a prison. The gates were open. The guards were replaced by polite employees of a private agency. In the living room there was a new piano, a black, shiny Steinway concert piano. Taras sold his old instrument 6 months ago to pay off his gambling debt. Angelina sat at the keys. Her fingers, long and strong, ran across the black and white field, extracting powerful, solemn chords of Rachmaninoff. Music filled the house, displacing the ghosts of the past. In the corner, on a soft carpet, 2 children were playing. The girl, Vera, has already grown stronger. Her cheeks turned pink. She curiously pulled her hands towards the bright cubes. Misha was crawling next to her. They were alike. The way a cousin and sister growing up together can be alike. Angelina finished her passage and turned to them. The house was quiet and calm. No drunken screams. No fake guests. No fear. Agatha was in the colony. The court gave her 8 years for leaving the scene of a fatal accident. She wrote letters full of remorse and asked to send money for cigarettes. Angelina sent money, but did not respond to letters. Forgiveness is a long process, and she wasn't ready for it yet. Taras received a life sentence. The investigation proved not only the episode with the father, but also connections with crime, ordered arson of competitors and financial fraud. That in solitary confinement and, according to rumors, finally went crazy, telling the walls about his great inheritance. Angelina approached the children. She took Vera in her arms, then picked up Misha. "It's hard, but it's not a burden to bear." She went to the window. Snow was falling behind the glass, covering the city with a white blanket. Factory chimneys smoked in the distance. The factory was working. People were getting paid. She deposited a substantial amount of rent into Angelina's account every month. She was alone, without a husband, without a sister, without parents. But she didn't feel lonely. She felt strong. She was the rock on which this little world now rested. "Well, my dears," she quietly said to the children, "it's time to sleep. You have a lot to do tomorrow. You need to live." She held them close to her, inhaled the smell of children's tops and smiled. For the first time in a long time, that smile was real. The matriarch came into her OWN, and why, dear listeners, this difficult story of Angelina has ended. Story about betrayal of those closest to you. Greed that burns the soul and the strength of spirit that can revive a person from the ashes.